Want to make homemade tomato sauce but don't have a lot of time to spend in the kitchen? Using the freezer in a slow cooker could be the answer. I'm Marcy McDonald from Pacific Northwest Suburban Homesteading. I demonstrated making tomato sauce in a previous video. Today I'm showing another lower effort method. There are only 5 steps: wash, freeze, thaw, strain, cook. If you do small batches, you don't even need to water bath can. You can pull out just enough tomatoes to use as you need sauce. Last year, I had lots of tomatoes. At the end of the last season, I bagged and froze the remaining tomatoes. It's early September and I don't have ripe tomatoes yet. Here in the Portland metro area of Oregon, it has been an unusual year. Cool things like the northern lights made it memorable, but we have also vacillated between temperatures between 90 and 100 degrees Fahrenheit and cool rainy days. Normally I have huge bowls of tomatoes and peppers by now. This year I won't get much. Such is the way of gardening. That's why I haven't made any gardening videos this season. Instead of the usual method of picking, washing, cutting, then cooking the tomatoes to soften them, I simply take the frozen ones out and let them thaw in the refrigerator. If you only have a bag or two, it doesn't take as long as it does with the number that I have here. This is what's known as a chinois. It's a fancy name for a type of strainer that is often used in canning and cooking to strain out things like tomatoes, like we'll be doing today. This one comes with a fancy stand, though I won't be using it, and it has what's known as a pedestal, and that's what we will be squishing the tomatoes with. Because I'm not actually going to be using this, I'm going to set this aside. I find it most useful to use my chinois on a pot, because this pot will either be what I cook tomatoes in, or it's just a helpful place to catch the tomato juice after I've strained it. And then I'll put it in whatever vessel I'm going to cook the sauce in. You could actually use a big strainer like this. This is more traditional. My mom had one very similar to this. Hers was aluminum. You don't want to use aluminum with a high acid thing because the aluminum can leach into your food, and aluminum is not good for the brain. But you don't have to buy a special thing if you've already got one of these. The point is just to catch the skins and hard bits of the tomatoes, plus all the seeds. So you can just strain out all of that and just have the juice and the light pulp that goes through the sieve to cook down into sauce. It took almost a week to thaw enough to strain. Until it's been a couple of days, things got moved in front of the tomatoes in the fridge. I had no idea I had this many tomatoes until I started pulling them out of the freezer to make room for other things, and because we wanted to make some tomato sauce. So it was a happy surprise. As you can see, there's liquid in these bags. I just actually smushed a tomato. Freezing breaks down the cells of the tomatoes, which means instead of cooking them like I did in the first tomato video, I'll have a link down below for that if you want to watch the first tomato sauce video. You cook them to soften them so they'll go through the sieve. These tomatoes were frozen, so a lot of that work has already been done for us. So we'll be able to very quickly run them through the chinois and separate the tomato juice that we want to make into sauce. I'll have a bowl to put the pulp in, so as we go, I'll have some place to put it. I have a spoon and a plate, so as I need to scrape down the sides of the chinois when we're dumping things out and stuff, I'll have these. All right, let's get started. See how much of a mess I can make. All right, I'm just gonna start scrunching them down. Use the point to kind of burst the tomatoes. I actually learned this trick from my sister, Jen Qualls. she doesn't bother to cook her tomatoes. She just freezes them and then thaws them to save herself a lot of work. There's really no too many, as long as it's not slopping over. I like to do slightly smaller batches because it makes it a little bit easier to know when I'm done. I don't have to push it down so much. I think that's probably what we're gonna get. Yeah, it's fairly dry. You can see we got the tomato on the sides there. It's pretty much stopped dripping off of it into the pot. So it's fairly dry. It's tomato skins and some seeds. Let's put the rest of it in there. Let's pour the juice off of another bag, and the liquid is pretty much touching the point on the chinois. It's time to take the juice we've already strained out and put it in the slow cooker. I don't need this. When we're cooking it, we're gonna wanna cook it without the lid so the liquid will evaporate off, so the sauce will thicken. Get all the seeds and things off the spoon, because we'll use a spoon to scrape off the sauce from the outside of the chinois. We don't wanna reintroduce the seeds we've just strained out. Gotta think of a more efficient way to do that. So take this over, and I'm just gonna scrape off the solids that have settled on the outside that haven't dripped down yet. On the rack, I'm just looking at it. Now, we'll pour all of this into our slow cooker level. It's actually mostly full. Looks like we're going to be doing some on the cooktop as well. Now back to squishing our tomatoes. Some of these feel like they still might have some ice crystals in them, but that won't really matter. You just have to thaw them enough to get them into a squishable state. Okay, we now have a full pot, and Scott has joined me. He's gonna help me out by pouring this into the slow cooker and then putting the slow cooker on, and we'll get that going.
I actually think we're gonna have more than will fit in that, so we'll need to start a second cooking vessel.
Yeah, definitely, we don't want to overfill, so we still have some in there.
Power high. And it's on.
What else are we going to put this in? Are we going to do cooktop for the rest of this?
Well, so it looks like we've got another, what, 2 bags?
This amount here is approximately what I put into to fill the slow cooker up to that level. So it is most of, about 2/3 of the cooking well for this number of tomatoes.
And there's a little bit left in that.
So we're pretty close to their cooking well if we want to do a second.
Let's break out the other slow cooker.
Okay. This is my original slow cooker from back in the day, post-college. This thing has served us extremely well. It's been a lot more years than I'm going to tell you.
We've actually broken 2 other ones.
Alrighty, so I'll just continue with this. So I just poured the last of the tomatoes I'm going to use. So with these strained, Get really good yield out of these tomatoes. Most of these are actually Repreco, which is a paste tomato. They're also called plum tomatoes, but paste tomatoes are called that because they work really well for making tomato paste. They have a lot less water content in them than your big slicers. People like beef steaks and other venerable varieties, and there's nothing wrong with that. They're great if you want to just bite into it and eat a tomato, or if you want to slice them on a sandwich. But since I primarily myself use tomatoes for sauce, I like the paste tomatoes because you get a lot more sauce out of each tomato and you don't have to cook it down as long to get the excess water out. And Scott, he says they taste good too. Scott actually came in and helped me for a while because this is a great upper body workout and he has much better upper body strength than I do. As I'm getting older, I don't have quite the same stamina I had when I was a youngster, when I first started doing all this stuff. Appreciate his assistance. He did the bulk of it actually, my first tomato video. Couldn't ask for a better husband. The pot's getting really full, so it's good that we're out of tomatoes. We'll talk about that other bag in a minute. So I do the chinois or strainer method. I have experimented with a lot of different ways of doing this. You can use a juicer if you like as well. That is a lot faster, especially the fresh tomatoes, because you can just throw them in there and you're done. I feel it's really wasteful though. They can be a bit messy as well. This is my kitchen ceiling. What we ended up doing is running the pulp after running through the juicer through the chinois anyway, because there's just so much waste. Okay, I think that's about it. If I wanted to push it, I could probably get a little bit more out, but I'm not sure it's worth it. Here, want to spoon again? All of those seeds that came over the edge. Let's put that in here because I don't want those in my sauce. Okay. I try really hard not to be wasteful. So I don't like to leave any excess, but this isn't a perfect world, so you're not going to get every last little bit. Get as much as you can. Done is more important than perfect, and it's still going to taste amazing. So you got some seeds fell off the thing. A little bit of spoonful. Now let's pour it into our second slow cooker. Let's try not to knock it off the counter and pour it on the floor. That would not be a great thing. Okay, we still have quite a lot of sauce left. Let's put that in a pot. I think we're going to use a saucepan to make sauce. Now this is the pulp that we had left. I mean, not my most efficient job, but still, I mean, that's not much considering how many bags of tomatoes that I started with. Speaking of the bags, there were 7-gallon bags of tomatoes. Now I'm gonna give these a wash. I never feel good about reusing zip bags for food because I never feel like I can get them clean enough. But there's no reason why we couldn't use it for other things. So I'll give them a wash so we're not just throwing them away because they're still perfectly good bags. They've just been used. Okay, unfortunately, our 8th bag I'm not going to end up using because it looks kind of gross. I don't know why, end of season, being tired, or who knows. These got stuck in the bag with stems still on them. And so there's all these little bits of tomato stems floating around in the liquid. I don't know if it brought dirt or anything in. Usually I wash them and then pull the stems off and then throw them in the freezer. So I don't know what happened. We'll just chalk this up, the mistakes were made. We'll put them in the compost so it won't totally go to waste, but I'm not going to put them in my sauce to eat. So we now turned our slow cooker on to high, and we'll have this cook until it cooks down. And we will turn the burner on. We'll slowly cook this down. We'll want everything cooked down to about half, and then we'll check and stir periodically.
So one of the things that I noticed as we were finishing up here, it was taking quite a while for the slow cookers to actually get the liquid inside up to a temperature where we could start doing some evaporation. So I'm just going to cheat, put the lid on the slow cookers, and I got this one on over here as well. Once they get up to a decent temperature where I'm starting to see some bubbling around the outside, then I'll take the lids off and just let it evaporate as we said earlier.
Using a slow cooker is, well, slow. Make sure you start early in the day and allow it to cook all day. It's helpful to stir once in a while to check your progress. Once your sauce is cooked down to about half, or it looks to be the thickness you like, you're done. If I use mostly paste tomatoes, it doesn't take as long, it doesn't cook down as far. This is the consistency I look for. I hope this method, or a combination of this video and the practices depicted in the first one, encourage you to give making homemade tomato sauce a try. It tastes so much better than store-bought. You do have to be aware that, at least my tomatoes, your sauce might be sweeter because it's made with ripe tomatoes. I leave sugar out of my pasta sauces, etc. to compensate for this. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Until next time, be curious, keep an open mind, and never stop learning.